right, we are live. Welcome. This is the Journey Home series. I believe this is our 6th class of the Journey Home series. This is Living a Life of Divine Guidance. I'm your host, Mastura Deborah Grenard, and presenting this evening is Dr. John Wadude Laird with the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism. Welcome, Dr. Wadude.
Thank you, Mastura. Is it time to start?
Yes, but you know what?
Okay. What?
Yeah. No, never mind.
Okay, I won't. Great.
Okay.
And with that sure-footed start, we are ready.
We're ready. Yes, we're ready to rock.
Wonderful.
Okay. Well, let me introduce you, Wadude, Dr. Wadude.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then we'll get rolling with this topic. I'm very excited about this topic today. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Wadude before we get started. Dr. Wadude, John Laird, is a former president of the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism. He is currently a faculty member. He is he is anchoring our Year 1 Masters of Divinity class that is starting at the end of this month, on October the 29th. And if you're interested in that, just make a note because there's still time to get in on that class. And we're going to tell you about how to do that at the end of this presentation today. Dr. Wadude is our anchor teacher for that class. He is an amazing, amazing, amazing man. He is a medical doctor, received his medical degree from Dartmouth Medical School in 1976. Has many years of experience with direct patient care. He is not an ordinary doctor. He is a doctor who has studied Sufism for, Wadude, I forgot now. Is it over 40 years?
40 years, yeah.
Yeah. A long time. And I tell you what, he is a man who really truly embodies Sufism in some of the most beautiful ways I've seen. He's very humble, so he would never tell you that, but I will. He has the name Wadude means love, and he certainly carries and exudes love and compassion and strength and a deep beauty and a deep wisdom. And as I said, he delivers it in a most humble way. So Wadude was responsible for the passage of landmark legislation in North Carolina back in his practicing days there, legalizing the practice of alternative medical therapies. He's really been a leader in the forefront of movement of alternative medical therapies in the medical world. And he has a deep, deep passion in his heart to carry the love of God as best as we can in human form, and to really share that with others, not in a proselytizing way, but just in the way that he lives his life and shares his heart on a day-to-day basis. And what an honor to know you and work with you for all of this time. I'm grateful and very excited to be here with you in this program today. So thank you very much, Wadude. I'll let you begin with your program, Living a Life of Divine Guidance.
Thank you, Master. And I look forward to the time when I can give you a comparable introduction, because I feel deeply honored to work with you. I'm very blessed. So next time you have one of your own classes, you're going to have to give me a call.
I will. Thank you.
I'll be glad to reflect to everybody the qualities that you carry. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah, the merciful and the compassionate. In your introduction, you were talking about love, and love has been a keynote for me. Many years ago, more than 40 years ago, I was minding my own business, walking in a New England apple orchard, I think. And all of a sudden, I was just overwhelmed with a sense that everything is love. And it's one of those mystical experiences which is very hard to describe, but it was just a knowing that behind everything is love. And I just kept looking around and saying, it's all love, it's all love. And, you know, I didn't do any drugs, and it was just one of these spontaneous experiences, whereas the Sufis would say, there are veils between the divine world and the human world. And for that moment, it's like God removed the veil to reveal the underlying reality of things. And so love has always been something, I'll say this, it's like we're talking about a divinely guided life. So in Sufism, this means a life divided by God and the angelic realms. And our life is guided with precision. It may feel like things are random or things aren't turning out the way we want, but at least many of us I'm in my late 60s, so many of us who've had lots of experience on this earth can look back in retrospect and see, wow, things are being orchestrated. And the title of this series, Journey Home, I think gives the keynote for what the orchestration is. The orchestration is to bring the human being back into unity with God, like deeply understood. Or if one, signs up for the whole deal here on Earth, this is my understanding of what the journey is all about. And in Sufism, it's said that God said, "In the beginning, I was a hidden treasure, and I loved to be known. And so therefore I created the creation." So when we say I'm a hidden treasure, this is understood by the Gnostics, meaning those who receive divine revelation directly, divine wisdom, divine knowledge. That hidden treasure refers to the time before time, when there was no manifestation. But out of that, it's like, I love to be known. So that actually has two meanings. One is that the purpose of creation is for God to be known. And the second underlying aspect of it, which is what I think I experienced in that apple orchard, is Allah saying, I loved in order to be known. And that underneath the whole creation is the movement of God's love. Well, what does it mean for God to be known? Well, the understanding in the Sufi tradition is that the purpose of creation is to know yourself in truth and to know God in truth. And truth means from direct experience, not from a philosophy, not from some real smart human being, but to know in reality through experience. So in Sufism, I say you don't have to believe anything we teach you. The question is, what is your experience, and does it ring true in your heart? The other good thing about Sufism is that you don't have to become anyone that you aren't already, because the insight in the Sufi tradition, and it's in other traditions for sure, is that the human being is innately sacred, innately divine. In Sufism, we say this hidden treasure in your heart is the treasure of divinity, the treasure of the beautiful divine qualities that all of us resonate to, the qualities of peace and love and mercy and compassion, wisdom, knowledge, strength. These are all, in a deep way, these are qualities that are held in the human heart. So in the Christian tradition, it's the Christ light within. In the Hindu tradition, it's Namaste, the divinity in me greets the divinity in you, and so on and so forth. In Sufism and Islam, it's called Fitra, which we would spell in English F-I-T-R-A. And that would be your divinity within. You could say it's the hidden treasure. You could also say it's your divine inheritance. It's what every human being is given, this core of holiness and beauty. So if one, going right to the topic, if one leads a divinely guided life, then my understanding, my experience is that the divine worlds set up your life so that you come to know who you are in truth, which is divinity, and you have more and more direct experiences of divinity, of God, and God can't be limited to anything, but you begin to have more and more experiences of divinity. So we say to know yourself is to know God. She who knows herself knows her Lord. He who knows himself knows his Lord. So in Sufism, the highest station, you might say, is perfection, but perfection doesn't mean not making any mistakes. Perfection means knowing in truth who you are. So that is the journey home is a journey inward. It's a journey inward. And it's a journey into the heart. It's said in our tradition by the Prophet Muhammad, and peace and blessings be upon him, that in the body there is a piece of flesh. And if that flesh is in the chest, actually, is a piece of flesh. And meaning the heart, but more than just the physical heart. And it was said that if the heart is healthy, the whole body is healthy. And if the heart is not healthy, then the body is not healthy. So in Sufism, we work with the heart for a couple of reasons. One, the deepest reality underlying everything is love, and the heart gets love naturally. The mind doesn't get it so readily because the mind, well, you know the mind, if you got a mind like mine, it often gets in the way. It's making differences rather than finding unity. The heart naturally gets unity, the heart naturally gets love, the heart naturally gets divinity much more readily than the mind. The poet said, who was the poet? E. Cummings or someone who said, he who sees only the syntax of things will never wholly touch you. So the syntax of things are the mental understandings. And someone who is solely in their mind doesn't really touch us in the way that someone who carries deep love and compassion and mercy. But these are people that just their very presence can be transformative for us. So the journey home is a journey inward. The journey to God is a journey inward. And through the heart. That's one of the essential insights of Sufism, is that to go through the heart is a very direct way. It's very relevant for me as a physician. I've been asked to present at a variety of different conferences, some national conferences. And last year I was at a conference in Georgetown where some amazing work is being done by big university systems, University of Ohio, Georgetown, San Francisco, big universities that are training hundreds and thousands of healthcare professionals. And the focus of the conference was, you know, what's going on in the field to teach healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, physical therapists, you know, medical assistants, across the whole range of healthcare. How do we treat them to have compassion? Not treat them. Yeah, we could treat our healthcare professionals better in training with more compassion. But how do we train them so that they have compassion and understanding and resilience and these kind of qualities and mindfulness and so on and so forth? And it was very striking to me after a while that nobody was talking about the heart. Nobody was talking about love. How can we talk about compassion as if it's a mental, you know, just a brainwave state? It's more than that. It has to do with what is the heart carry? Does the heart carry compassion? Not does the mind have a mental understanding of compassion? So I realized that that was part of the message that I could bring to this conference to begin to, you know, put that seed into the discussions, if you will. And I had a direct experience of that when I was asked to teach I was actually asked by an oncology department to come in and teach their staff and to help to move the culture from a culture of caring to a culture of love. And there was one person in the oncology department that was sort of the champion of this. But when I mentioned, and this is a very, very sophisticated, very dedicated, incredibly capable oncology group of nurses and associated health professionals. But when I mentioned love, it was like, love? What do you mean? Like, ha ha ha, we were supposed to make love with our patients? It's like, and the energy got all squirrely, and it was just sort of shocking to me. And then when I talked about the heart, this is a world I've been living in for 20 years. I mean, my day job is to teach Sufi healing and to help people connect with their heart. So I admit it was a little bit living in a bubble, as my daughters would say. But when I talked about the heart and bringing the heart, it just had, people had no connection to it. It didn't mean anything. So just getting people aware of that they have a heart, and it's not just the emotional heart, but deep within the heart is the world of the soul, and deeper than the soul is the world of what the Sufis call the secret. And it's to the secret that the divine speaks directly. So all of us have probably had experiences of that, where you get a deep understanding, a deep revelation, if you will, and it's in the deep layers of the heart, which we call the secret. So there is a spiritual anatomy of the heart, but in our culture, I don't think in general people even understand that the heart has a whole world upon world upon world of spiritual realms. So some of the work that we do at the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism is obviously to help students understand they have a heart and how to bring healing through the heart. Well, why would we do that? Well, remember, from, again, a spiritual anatomy point of view, deep within the heart are the lights of divinity, the worlds of divinity, the realities of divinity, but they've gotten covered over. That's the problem. So how does it work? In simple terms, let's see, what would demonstrate this? So many years ago, I helped to start a Sufi community in Asheville, North Carolina called Light of the Mountains. And part of our service was I set up an out-of-hospital birthing center so that women and their families would come and we would deliver babies out of the hospital. And so you could say it was under ideal circumstances because these were, couples that were, conscious and wanted to create the best possible birthing experience for their child, and without drugs and so on and so forth. So these children, by and large, came out just stunningly beautiful and radiant, and as the Romantic poet said, the trailing clouds of glory, the divine presence was just radiating off them. So any of you who've seen children know that, most children when they're born are they're incredibly beautiful, they're magnetic, and I happen to know that now because a month ago my first grandchild was born, so it helped me connect in with that whole reality again. I mean, just the whole thing is just dripping with divinity. So it's you might say it's an immature divinity because it's in a being that hasn't had the log in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years in this world. But that's why the divinity is so apparent. But what happens? Well, life happens. And so the material world starts to impinge on this beautiful, innocent creature. And things happen. The body, starts to get whatever. It starts to get colic, or the baby's hungry and then cries to get fed. But maybe mommy isn't able to get there right away because mommy's got some other child to take care of, or whatever, mommy's got to go to the bathroom and take care of things. There's so many things that have to be navigated, or we get cold, or our sibling comes up and whacks us because they're jealous that you've been born. I mean, there's so many things that happen, and we have all these experiences, and because of how our brain is wired, we make meaning out of it. Instantaneously, we make meanings out of it. And for those of you who are familiar with psychology and negativity bias, there's a school of thought, which I think has a lot of validity, is that as human beings, yes, we clearly make interpretations and meanings out of everything that happens to us. It happens instantly. And there tends to be a bias towards what we might call a negative interpretation, so that if something happens to us, we tend to think, well, there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with the other person, or there's something wrong with men, or something wrong with women, or something wrong with God. But there's something wrong. It's so-called negativity bias. The example that I think is used in the university is if you're early on in human evolution and you're walking down the forest and you see a stick, well, you see this this straight dark object, or this object in the weeds somewhere, that the ancestors who interpreted that, oh, that's just a stick, but it happened to be a snake, their line got snuffed out because the snake took them out. Whereas the ancestors who looked at whatever it was in the bush and said, oh, that's a snake, had a negative bias toward interpretation. They lived long, they're more likely to live, and their progeny were more likely to survive. So early on, people with negativity biases tend to apparently survive more likely than the wide-eyed optimists. Anyway, it shows up in that we have experiences, but with those experiences, we immediately make an interpretation, and those interpretations, whether they're positive or negative, tend to get put on top of our experiences, and then we look for patterns, and we start creating patterns, and we decide who we are and who we're not. You know, I'm this, I'm that, I'm good at this, I'm not good at that, I'm not good enough is a common one that we see all the time when we're doing the healing work. We all have these inner identities that we've created, and once they're created, then that begins to distort our perceptions. So, for example, for me, one has been present was I'm not good enough. So something happens, I might do a great job at teaching, let's say, and I'll come out of it with saying, oh, that wasn't good enough. Or someone could say something to me, and I interpreted it, well, they're saying it's not good enough, although they may have just been saying it was a great job, and here's something else you could consider. So we all have these filters. And then what happens is we start living into those filters, and our past actually is what we start living into the future. It's like the interpretations we made of the past creates the future that we live into and distorts our present. So it's not just Sufism who's figured that out. This is kind of widely understood now. The relevance for the journey home is that our heart carries all of these interpretations, these stories, these identities, and this covers over that beautiful divinity that we see with the child just being born, where they have no covers, no veils on top of their divinity. By the time we're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, or 20 years old, there's a lot of stuff that's covering over the heart. So when we say that the journey home is a journey through the heart, it's actually a journey of beginning to uncover all of the stuff that all of our hearts carry. It's not just meaning and interpretations, but it's also traumatic experiences, strong emotions that we haven't been able to heal, or there wasn't the knowing of how to heal something in the moment that it happens, and everything gets stuffed and things get stuffed one on top of the other. So what this leads to, I know I'm speaking generically, but hopefully you can get a sense of how this applies to you personally, because that's the most important thing. And in a moment we'll get to a Sufi practice which we use to help uncover all of this and lead toward healing. What happens is that when our essential connection to divinity is clouded over, or blocked, constricted, covered over with false beliefs, false identities, self-limiting beliefs, when that innate connection with divine knowledge and wisdom gets, I don't want to say severed, but when it gets lost, that's probably the best way to say it, then the self takes over. The self takes over, because what else can take over? We don't have that innate trust, that innate connection, that wide open channel to receive divine wisdom, so the self takes over. And our self does the best thing it can. But the self is the self. It's limited. It's not divinity. So the self, whether you call it ego, in the Sufi tradition, it's called nafs, N-A-F-S. It's actually a more broader concept, deeper concept than ego, but these are all different words for the self. What happens when your self takes over? Well, then you start manipulating the world to get the results that you want. If you're feeling unsafe, you create a whole variety of strategies, consciously and unconsciously, to create safety in your life. One of them is closing your heart. Another one can be creating boundaries, which really cuts you off from intimacy. I'm not saying people shouldn't have boundaries. I'm just saying when the self sets the boundaries, then these boundaries, it's a trade-off. There's one thing that you get, but then you have a life more and more guided by the self. The self is guided by your identity. The identity is limited and damaged and created out of, honestly, illusions. And then what happens is we have a life that has increasing levels of limitation, less possibility, less power, less creativity, unless somebody consciously begins to, address this sort of underlying generic experience that we all have as human beings. So the journey home, just to review where we are so far, the journey home is a journey through the heart, because the heart carries divinity, but the divinity has gotten covered over, which has led to a life guided by the self. So if the topic is leading a divinely guided life, then the challenge is really, how do we move from a life guided by the self to a life guided by God? Especially when the self is deeply invested in our survival through the strategies of the self. It's not easy. It's not easy. So there are many spiritual traditions which work on cleaning the ego, and these are all incredibly valuable. Also in Sufism. And the Sufism has for me, the part that I love most deeply is the real goal of Sufism is to live in unity with God, with the whole creation, without any separation, and to do so through love. One can reach levels of unity and higher states of consciousness through the mind, but when you do the journey through the heart, then love becomes the keynote. So in our experience, if people move spiritually, you could say solely through austerities, doing the practices, following all the rules, so on and so forth, they become, good people, you could say, but very few people arrive at these deep levels of unity that we're talking about. But when it's done with some discipline, there has to be some discipline and some cleaning of the ego, for sure. But when that's combined with doing it through love, then, as we say, many, many, many more people arrive. And the best part about it is that the heart becomes an oasis. It becomes an oasis because the heart, the deeper heart, actually begins to know itself as divinity. And when you could say, when you look inside your heart, then you, instead of seeing trouble at a deeper level, you see beauty. So, Master, I'm going to tell a story, which I don't even know. I think I must have told you this. But the first time I discovered that was Master and I were directors of the Sufi University a long time ago, and we were in actually I won't say where it was, but we were in a retreat center in the northwest part of the United States. And this was a really challenging session. Esther was really director of operations. She was in charge of everything. And so this was a time when our Sufi guide, Sidi Muhammad al-Jamal, had come from Jerusalem. So he was present in this school session. And we had at least probably 200 people in terms of all the students and the family and guests. And Esther is managing all of this. Many classes that are happening, coordinating that, coordinating the food, coordinating the relationships with the retreat center, coordinating everything that was going on with CD. It was kind of like having a visiting dignitary. And on top of that, we got a sense that it was possible that the retreat center might be going out of business before our next school session, which was probably, let's say, 2 to 3 months from now. And we wanted to make sure that all of our students knew where the next school session would go. So in the middle of the week, I don't know if you remember, Master, but you and I, we flew down to Southern California to look at a whole nother retreat center. So you're managing all of that all of this at the same time. It's like on top of everything. It's like, okay, we're going to find a place to put 200 people next 2 months. So any of you have done
this well.
Yeah, any of you have done managing events like this, or even just finding hotel space, that can be a full-time job. So anyway, this is a situation. So we had a faculty member who was teaching a class on the heart and how to just be present inside someone's heart. So he said, it's like in a tent. It's like you come up to a tent, you open the flap, you stick your head in, and you look. So he asked me if I wasn't teaching a class at the moment. So he asked me if I would sit in the front of the stage and just be somebody so all these students could look at my heart. And you remember I said that in the spiritual anatomy of the heart, there's different layers of the heart, different worlds of the heart. So I'm just sitting on the chair, and I'm sort of like, there's nothing for me to do because he was walking people through these different levels of the heart. And I thought, well, I should just look into my own heart, see if I can do that. I never even thought about that before. So, okay, the outer layer of the heart is the part of the heart that's involved in the world. So we see things in the world on the material level, three-dimensional level. So in this case, when I was present to that part of my heart, I was present to, wow, there are a million things here that we're managing, students and teachers and so on and so forth. And then, so let's look at the deeper layer of the heart. So the deeper layer of the heart was, we call it the world of the heart. This is where the realms of love begin to show up in a most beautiful way. Anyway, Master, when I was in there, I realized that my heart was just holding the whole thing in compassion. And right in the middle of it was you, actually. It's like just holding you and then holding the students and holding our guests and so on and so forth. And then so, okay, well, let's go to the deeper level. It's like the level of the soul. And when I sort of stuck my head inside that, I heard this, well, I'm going to say it, and I may need to explain this for people who haven't done Sufi practices, but what I heard was my heart singing, La ilaha illallah. It was singing, there is only God, there is only unity. And it was just, it's like in the Christian tradition, you could say my heart was singing the glorias or the hallelujahs. It was so holy, and what struck me about it is I was completely unaware that there was this deeper level of my heart that was singing praises to the Creator and to God and to the creation. And when someone does the deep spiritual work, and I can only speak about Sufism, because that's where I've spent 40 years of studying, but when one undergoes this process of, and there are stations and there's specific steps that are known in the Sufi tradition in this journey home. There's really 28 specific stations in what we call the first journey, which is a journey into the world of unity and living from that world. So there are specific steps, but even as one, starts this relatively early on, because I work a lot, I'm the anchor teacher for the first year class. So by the time our students come back after 3 months, it's like this is already happening. Some students who've taken training before they come to the university, they already have it. And what am I saying is happening? It's like the heart inside is beginning to illuminate. These qualities of love, peace, and mercy are beginning to illuminate, and we'll do a practice in a moment to how this happens. And so I point out to students I point out to anyone listening to this teaching, is that our hearts are always concerned, almost always concerned with what's going on in the world, and that can be very upsetting or very seductive, or it can capture our attention, get us preoccupied. But there are deeper worlds of the heart that at the same time have their own reality, their own life. And in Sufism, at least, as you're doing the spiritual practices and doing the healing work, this inner world starts to grow, and you can just stick your head in and look for it, ask God to show it to you, And you'll find that there's a place in your heart that has peace. There's a place in your heart that has love, regardless of what's going on in your day-to-day life. We call this process metaphorically, and actually is your heart, your deep heart becomes an oasis. So that no matter what's happening in the world, in your world, whether you're having a good hair day or a bad hair day, or in my case, a no hair day, no hair. Good hair day, bad hair day, no hair day. There's this the world in your heart where there's peace, where there's support, where there's connection with divinity. So how do we do that? Sufism's called a path of purification and beautification. So purification means to help the heart release whatever it is that no longer serves it, no longer any part of your what's carried in your heart that's no longer true, really, in the deep way. So that's the purification part. So it's like, it's a letting go. And it may be anger, judgment, jealousy, arrogance, self-management, fear. It can be, and is many things for all of us. Step by step, just releasing what causes constriction in the heart, really. Lack of trust, doubt, all these things. On the one hand. On the other hand, it's receiving directly from the divine worlds the lights of divinity. Seeing with the inner eye, love has many lights, compassion has light, peace has light, wisdom, strength, knowledge, aliveness, qualities of seeing, hearing. All these things are really different lights, different, let me just say, different expressions of divinity. So the purification, the beautification part is when you start receiving these delicious treats from the divine world, on the one hand. So they literally are received. You can say, quote, from the outside. There really isn't any outside for the human being, but we'll just say from the outside. So part of the work in Sufism is to learn how to open your heart to receive directly from divinity. Like I said, many people don't realize that they have a heart or a spiritual heart, and I've never come across anyone who is able, at least when we see them, able to open their heart fully to divinity. So just the whole skill of being able to open to receive the divine blessings that are sent is, something we work a lot at on the first year of the school. We probably work on it the first year, the second year, and the third year, the fourth year, because in some ways there's no end to the amount of blessings you can receive from the divine. But so it's a path of purification and beautification, purification, beautification. So to summarize, the journey home is a journey inward through the heart, and it's a process of releasing what no longer serves you and receiving more and more support directly from divinity. So let's jump into a practice. So everybody say La ilaha, because this is, if you remember, this is what I heard my heart singing. So it seems when I stuck my head inside the tent of my own heart. So everybody say La ilaha, La ilaha, La ilaha, La ilaha. Okay, good. Just say it after me. And now say it in your heart. So you're not only saying it with your what would you say, your tongue, your lips, but also say it into your heart and with your heart. So you're bringing it from the outside to the inside. La ilaha, La ilaha, La ilaha, La ilaha. Now, La ilaha is the purification part of the practice. So here's how you do it. So take a moment just to be present to your own heart, and whatever's there that no longer serves you, that you'd like to release, constricting identity, inner voices, emotional states, whatever it might be, And then make a prayer to God, to the One, to the Creator, to Allah, whatever name you use. It's like addressing the source of divinity, source of creation. Make a prayer for purification, a prayer for releasing what no longer serves you, what's no longer true for you, what's no longer in the highest. So you're setting a prayerful intention from this moment on for this to release, to wash, to let go. So in an imaginary way, you're bringing yourself before divinity and asking for letting go of what no longer serves you. Okay, good. Now as we say La ilaha, that's the meaning of La ilaha. So for La ilaha, just put that, we're going to continue to recite it, but put that prayer, if you will, on La ilaha into your heart in front of divinity. So La ilaha begins to carry that prayer. La ilaha, 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 La ilaha. Okay, good. Take a pause and just breathe in using inhalation, breathing in through your nose, breathing in through your heart center. Receiving, the emphasis is on receiving, and then letting go on the exhalation. Breathing in divine presence, divine support, light. Breathing in and exhaling. We'll continue again on this first half of the recitation. Again, with a gentle intention to keep bringing it to your heart and deeper to your heart in a gentle way. La ilaha, 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 La ilaha. Good. Resting, breathing in, receiving. And through this practice, we're really focusing on care for your heart. It's really the key here, caring for your heart. The second half of the recitation is illallah. And I'll say it a couple of times and we'll have a chance to practice it together. Illallah. Illallah. Say it after me. Illallah. 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 Okay, good. So let's put a prayer on that. And this prayer could be your prayer for whatever you'd like to receive from divinity in terms of healing, whatever qualities perhaps you'd like to carry more of, love, peace, mercy, wisdom, strength, holiness. Just listening, being with your heart to really ideally listen to what your heart's longing for. in terms of divinity, because your heart will tell you peace, healing, freedom from doubt or fear. Just listen to your heart, whatever it is. And then put that in the form of a prayer to the Most High. My beloved Lord, my beloved God, please send me the healing, please send me the love, send me the mercy, send me guidance, whatever it might be. And now we bring that prayer in with illallah into our heart. So repeat after me. Illallah, 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 illallah. Breathing in, dropping inside more and more. Now we put the whole thing together and just repeat after me. And I'm doing the repeat after me because there are some people in the class where this is a new practice. I want to make it slow and easy and easy to understand. And this is the practice I encourage you to take home, actually. Well, you are home, but take away from this class, because my prayer is that out of this class you can take something home that you can use that will make your life more beautiful, richer, for the rest of your life. Really, literally something you can take away that you could use for the rest of your life with real benefit. So this is one thing you could take away, is this practice. That's why we're taking time with it. So repeat after me. La ilaha illallah. 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 So continuing to be with your heart, dropping into your heart, keeping your awareness on your heart, breathing into your heart. And just resting, receiving. And even if you have thoughts and habits or whatever that take you out of your heart, it's no big deal. Just continue with the recitation and bring your awareness back to the heart, back to your prayer, as you can, in an easy and gentle way. So again, follow me and let yourself journey home deeper into your heart. La ilaha illallah. 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 And just breathing in, receiving, opening, resting. One of the beautiful insights in the Sufi tradition concerning this journey home is that God is orchestrating this journey to bring you home. Because, as we said in the beginning, God said in the beginning, I was a hidden treasure that loved to be known. So there's so many things in the creation that are designed to help bring us back to our essential divinity, and through knowing that, like not intellectually, but knowing ourselves as that, we begin to know the truth of who God is, free from whatever a particular dogma might say God is, but through the direct experience of the heart, we say through the direct witnessing or the eye witnessing of the heart, that the heart begins to see divinity. And this journey home is, once we clear all of our voices and beliefs to the contrary, you begin to realize that it's like divinity is magnetically pulling us toward unity, toward love, toward peace, toward knowing the true beauty and majesty that we've been given to carry as human beings. Full of love, full of the peace, full of the mercy. So you see this in the glance, in the eyes of people who carry this love and mercy. It comes out through their eyes. You know, so many times people cast judgment out of their eyes, or hate, or envy, or jealousy, or separation, or fear. But as your heart becomes truly overflowing with these qualities, because you could say the veils have been released, then these qualities begin to pour through your eyes. They pour through your speaking. They are imbued with your listening. So you're listening for what is good. You're listening for, regardless of what people say, you're beginning to listen to what is their heart saying, and what is the divine saying about them. These qualities are overflowing. And you know, the Sufis have a saying, if you want to be generous, it's good to be rich. So if you want to be generous in the love, it's good to be overflowing with love. So this is different than the self trying to be being a loving person. This is the heart that's overflowing, because the connection with the source of love through a practice like this is what brings healing, illumination, and abundance to the heart. This practice of La ilaha illallah in the Sufi tradition is called remembrance, or dhikr. Some of you might have heard the word zikr or dhikr. Dhikr is remembering who we are and remembering who God is. And over time, metaphorically, experiencing our unity with the divine. We're still a human being. You could say God is still God. There's no equating the two. But when a human being knows who she really is, then she begins to know who God really is. La ilaha illallah. 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 To be present to your heart, to be present to what change there's been in your heart, especially like a beneficial change. Like what's happened that has been supportive for you. And you might say good medicine, it might be there's more relaxation or more openness or more depth or more peace, or maybe you've been given an insight into something in your life, or maybe a sense of love or hopefulness, or a sense of, you might say, healthy detachment from everyday life and concerns, or a sense of relaxation. Just identify something that's been beneficial for you. Now, the reason I ask this is because another jewel in this tradition is God said, when you remember me, I remember you. When you remember me, I remember you. So this practice of remembrance clearly is a way of remembering God. There are other ways. But when God says, and I remember you, my understanding of that is that there's a response from the divine world when you do remembrance. It's not just that we're sitting here mumbling a Sufi chant, if you will, but there's a response. When you remember me, I remember you. Well, how does God remember us? By sending light through angels or teachers or prophets and messengers, through the holy ones, or directly from Allah. But they're light, it's divine light. And it could be the light of love, wisdom, knowledge, holiness. It could be the light of healing. There's an infinite number of expressions of divinity. But that these are sent directly to the heart. It's one of the deep insights in Sufism. You remember me, I remember you. So my question to you, and as it is to my students right from the first day of class, is just consider the possibility that when you do the remembrance, Allah remembers you. And take that on as a possibility. And if Allah remembered you in this particular remembrance, how did Allah remember you? What was sent? You might not have any idea, or it might be clear, but just to develop the habit of looking. Okay, what was sent? What did I receive? Because the remembrance is about opening the doors of unity between you and the Most High. So at this point, this might be a good time for people to share any experiences you had here today, share any questions about the remembrance or anything that I've brought up, or ask any other question so we can hopefully have some communication and connection that way. So, Mastura, I don't know if people need to know how they can post questions, but you can remind them now. I have no idea how it works, so I'm going to let you handle that.
Yes, I can take care of that. Yeah, so if you are watching or listening via the internet, there is a comment section at the bottom of the page. You should be on the Pathos Essence of the One blog, essenceoftheone.com, and there, the second post down is called Live Stream, Living a Life of Divine Guidance, and there is a comment section at the bottom of that page. You can type your comments and questions into that section there, and we'll pass those along to Dr. Wadude. Also, if you're on the phone, you can press star 2. Star 2 will raise your hand, and then I'll unmute your line and let you ask your question. So 2 ways to ask questions, 2 ways to give comments. Now, Wadude, there is a question that's been here since before you made that specific call. Yeah, that specific invitation. Would you like me to read you that question to go ahead with that?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. Sure. I'm open for anything.
Okay.
Your face there looking serious there. I wasn't sure what you were reading or why. See, we make meaning out of everything.
Yes, we do. We make meaning out of trying to find
out of nothing.
Out of having a lot of windows open and trying to find the right one. Okay, so the question is, I can see a better direction in my life, but it requires a lot of courage to change. Do you have a recommendation on how to muster this courage to change one's life direction?
Sure, great question. And a very sincere question, and thank you for offering that into our conversation today. And I'm going to tie it in with the class here. So, a life guided by the self, for this question, would be, what do I have to do to get more courage? So I can be stronger, and so on and so forth. It's like, what can I do as a self? Now, a life that's divinely guided is you would let me go back. So if the life is guided by yourself, then you're going to rely, and the key is you're going to rely on yourself to find the way to have courage. A divinely guided life, or life in the unity, is your heart's reliance would be on God. So if I want more courage, I could read books on courage, but what I could do through the remembrance is say, my beloved God, what I sense is I'm going to need courage in this next chapter of my life. Please help my heart carry the courage. It's like it's like a Sufi smart. It's like, go to the source of whatever it is that you need. So if you need courage, go to the source of courage. Well, courage is, and the source of all that's good and beautiful is God. So this courage is actually a very complex thing. It has strength, it has love. Courage doesn't mean being without fear. Courage means acting in spite of whatever fear somebody has. And a lot of that can be carried over by love and commitment and insight and guidance, and there's many aspects to courage. So my suggestion would be that you sit in remembrance for 5 or 10 minutes, and then bring to your beloved Lord the request for courage. And there's a couple different ways to do it. One is to recognize that your heart is needy for something. In this case, your heart is needy for courage, or it might be needy for trust. Because if you have complete trust, then courage might not be in the forefront so much. In a way, you don't really know what you need. Or I'm just going to say that's your interpretation is you need courage, but who knows what you need? But you start where you are. So, beloved Allah, I come to you and I'm needy for courage, needy for trust. So that's the first thing. Address it to the Most High. And like I said, after you've done remembrance for 5 or 10 minutes. And then be present with the need in your heart. In Sufism, neediness of Allah, neediness of God is a good thing. We're all brought up to not be needy, and needy is negative. I suppose in the world of the ego being negative is, draining. It's like people are really sucking on your energy or something. We don't like that. It's like, get away. But in Sufism, to come to Allah with your heart in need is it's wise, number one, because it's very smart to come to the one who is the source of what you need. But it's actually an exalted stage, because the journey home to the world of unity is leaving a life that's dependent on yourself, moving through different stations of really surrender and trust, beautiful stations, it's all beautiful and gentle. Moving through these stations so that you have a life where your reliance is on Allah, not in your ego. Just having your heart in reliance on Allah takes away so much of the fear and the anxiety and the doubt. So the poet Rumi, I know Mastura has beautiful Rumi quote, Rumi Tuesday, on their website there. There's a poem for Rumi, I think it was translated by Coleman Barks, I'm not sure, but it's translated as "Cry out in your weakness." And it's a beautiful poem about coming to Allah in your weakness. We don't come to unity with Allah through our strength, through living a life of no mistakes, through perfecting all of our actions so that we enter into the worlds of unity. It's exactly the opposite. The great Sufi master Abdul Qadir al-Jilani many years ago had studied with all of the great spiritual institutions in Islam and Sufism, and he had deep inner knowledge and the ability to really help. He had thousands of students to help them transformation and to really walk on this journey of unity. And he writes how one day I presented myself upright to the gates of heaven, and everyone was there, everyone else in spirit, if you will, were there, and you could say like the front door, the gates of heaven, and nobody was getting in. And it's like, here I am, his words were literally, I'm presenting myself upright to the gates of heaven. And nothing was happening. And then he realized it's a question of leaving self-management, self-direction. Remember, he said, so he was full of awareness of himself, one imagines, presented myself. It's like, okay, now's my time, God, let me in. Upright, meaning standing, in contradistinction to bowing or to prostrating. He said, I presented myself upright to the gates of heaven, but didn't get in. And everyone else was presenting themselves upright to the gates of heaven, and none of them were getting in either. So he goes into remembrance. He goes into, one presumes, the Sufi practice of tawbah, which is identifying the mistakes and, cleaning the mistakes and returning to God more deeply. And then he said, and then I presented myself to the door of humility, poverty, ignorance, and debasement. So instead of the door of being upright and self-management, he went around, one imagines, to the side door, the back alley, to humility, which is clear, poverty, which is like Jesus saying, blessed are the poor in spirit, poverty, ignorance, meaning, Allah, you know, you're the knower, I'm not, you know, and debasement. So I like to say he wasn't from New Jersey, so he wasn't talking about debasement. He was talking about putting oneself beneath. It's like in Sufism, the further you advance spiritually, let's say, the more you should be at the feet of your brothers and sisters. It's like Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. So translated into English, debasement. It's like you put yourself beneath others, not out of spiritual pride and not out of poor self-esteem. You just realize that you're here to serve. So he goes around to the door of humility, ignorance, poverty, and debasement, and guess what? No one else is there. And guess what? The door was wide open, and he was admitted into the worlds of unity. Out of God's generosity, not out of his reliance on himself on obviously a very subtle level. So back to courage. It's like, cry out in your weakness, Rumi wrote. And the metaphor is beautiful. He says, it's the baby's cry that stimulates the letdown reflex in the mother's breasts so that the milk of love and mercy and nourishment flows. It's the baby's cry. So when your heart cries out for help to Allah, that's another form of remembrance, because you're remembering, oh, God is the source, the deepest, truest, you might say healthiest source of what it is I really need to have healing or to have resolution or to have courage. So let your heart cry out. And again, it's not an ego cry, it's just your heart recognizes the reality, the essential weakness of the human being, again, not from poor self-esteem, but the human being in relation to the Almighty, and recognizes that the source of what I'm looking for is from Allah. So, thank you for the question, and I'm obviously talking to everybody about anything. If you need strength, if you need guidance, if you need love, if you need protection, if you need peace, go to your heart and feel the neediness of your heart for that, not your mind, but your heart, and let your heart cry out. And that's where the prayer comes in. When 2 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with cancer, and at that time, cancer for me was like a death sentence, and I was completely freaked out. And I have never prayed in the way that I prayed in those first few months. I mean, I was on my knees, deeper than that, at every single level, and every prayer had such an intense longing and neediness of Allah. And as I found actually through this journey, and just so that people don't worry, she's had a complete remission and doing amazingly well, and is fully active in giving. And, as she said in the beginning, our family loved each other, and now we cherish each other. It was an amazing experience for us, and that prayer, praying with such fear, such hope, such dependence, it was simultaneously what we call the Jalal, which is very strong, very difficult, very challenging, and the Jamal, which means blessed and beautiful. And there's a level of Jalal and Jamal, majesty and beauty, that I may have never experienced before or since, in terms of what came through the praying. But what opens the door is the neediness. So take the need for courage, recognize, and again, this is for everybody, whatever you're working at, recognize that courage is what you think you need. but let the doctor know it. It's like when you're going to Allah instead of yourself, you're getting a real second opinion. You know, you're not getting another opinion from your ego. You're going to Allah, and just trust that Allah will send you whatever it is that you need. It may be in that remembrance, or it may be later on, or, you know, maybe something that you have to do regularly for a few days or a few weeks. Or, you know, we don't know. But to have trust that when Allah remembers you, when you remember Allah, Allah remembers you. And like I said, be awake that maybe what you think you need actually isn't the real medicine. If you think you need courage, maybe it's trust. Maybe it's understanding. We don't know. So hopefully that, it's a very deep question, and hopefully that's helpful for people. The only other thing I'll say, which is a little bit beyond this particular class tonight, is when you're, another aspect of it is be with your heart and identify whatever your own voices of fear are that makes you feel like, well, this is scary and I got to have more courage. But instead of saying I got to have more courage, look at whatever it is your heart is believing in or witnessing. I'm not good enough. They won't accept me. This is too big for me. Whatever that is for you, and then actually bring your remembrance to that. You're saying, a lot of these are places where I'm needy and listening, and I have all these beliefs that are, you know, are scaring me, make me afraid that I won't be able to take on this next big step. And bring the remembrance to that, and then watch what happens. So that's using the remembrance, not so much in a general sense, but it's actually targeting it on a particular belief or a particular fear or a particular emotion. And we go into that in great depth in the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism, because that's part of the healing. So it's all still a process of purification and beautification. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, and thank you so much for that beautiful response, Wadude. There is another question on the phone line.
Okay.
Okay, I am unmuting you from Archer, Florida. You're unmuted. Area code 352.
Archer, Florida. Hi. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Good. Well, it's
Okay, hold on, Wadude. Excuse me,
Oh.
Wadude. Let's repeat the question for the video, because the people in the video
Okay.
are not hearing that.
Okay, so the question, as I understand it, is given that he has intuitions, he's been told from a previous teacher that those intuitions may be coming from sort of habits even in his soul. And how does he know whether the intuitions that he receives are, you might say, from conditioning that has set in previous to this, or whether they're the divine light, fresh and direct, and therefore, you know, worth following. John, does that cover the question? Okay, good. So it's a great question and super important. The short answer is to take whatever intuition that you have or guidance that you have, bring it to your heart, and then I mean, one thing you can do is bring it to your heart and see how your heart reacts to it. Sometimes we bring something to our heart and our heart constricts, or our heart darkens, or our heart has pain. That might make one tend to believe, well, this is not in the highest for me. Of course, if it's guidance that scares you, maybe your heart would constrict. So that particular approach was not foolproof, but it is worth bringing something to your heart. But the the short and most direct answer is bring the intuition to your heart. And again, speaking to everyone here on the call, bring it to your heart, be present to it in your heart, and then start doing remembrance. And you, just like I was saying, you can bring remembrance into fear or anxiety or whatever it is that's creating the sense of the need for courage. You can bring the remembrance into a piece of guidance or intuition that you have. And then you see what happens with it. Now, it brings up a subtle point that's important whenever you do the remembrance, is you can start the remembrance with an intention. Allah, please send the healing. Please release this from my heart. Please help me open to guidance. And it's fine to have an intention. It's important. But remember I said it's a prayerful intention. But you're leaving it up to Allah. This is my prayerful intention, and Allah, please make with it whatever you want to make with it. Please send me in your knowledge, in your wisdom, what is in the highest for me. So the remembrance is the art of the remembrance is you can come in with an intention and a desire. We all have desires. But the art is to let go of self-management, directing the outcome, and truly being open to whatever Allah wants to do with it. So in terms of intuition, this is where it becomes key, because maybe we have intuition that's really a reflection of our ego, and our desire is for Allah to confirm that intuition. And if we hold on to it enough, we'll probably have an experience that we'll interpret that Allah is confirming it, and off we'll go, following a piece of guidance which was really just from our ego or our nafs. But if you come to Allah in neediness, again, neediness, Allah, here I have this intuition. I'm needy for the truth. I'm needy for, certainty. If this is the way that is, most pleasing to you, is this the way that's in the highest? And you bring the remembrance and you sit in remembrance with whatever the intuition is, and then you literally watch, experience, or sense, depending on, it might be any of those things, what Allah makes with it. Does it, so Allah you might sit in remembrance with it and it disappears. It just like kind of goes away. Well, in general, that's more likely to be a sign that whether or not that intuition was accurate or not, it's not in the highest. Or you can do remembrance into guidance, and what will happen is all of a sudden your heart will start feeling darkened or constricted, or you say, okay, well, that's actually probably showing that there's some darkness within the guidance that I had. You can do remembrance into guidance, and I'm just trying to think of experiences I've had where kind of like nothing happens. And my general sense of that is, well, it's probably not in the highest. Yeah, uh-huh. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. So you're setting an intention.
So Wadude, again, will you repeat that for the video?
Okay, so he said when he does istikhara, which is a special practice of asking for guidance, which was given by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in his lifetime, sometimes nothing comes in the immediate time around when he's doing it, but something comes later, like an answer to his guidance. Is that correct, John? Right, when he's not trying to find the answer, it comes. And all I'd said in the beginning was you had set the intention initially and the answer came, but not necessarily. The same thing with remembrance. The answer might not come when you do remembrance, but what I'm suggesting is oftentimes you can get an answer to your question, is this guidance in the highest for me, and not just through the remembrance, because there are times where I've had a, intuition, let's say, and I do remembrance and it disappears, and then, but I keep doing remembrance, and then a higher level of guidance come in, or a more truthful level of guidance comes in. So that was the only piece that I wanted to complete there, is that this is a way you can use remembrance that's specifically related to guidance. Does that give you an answer to your question or not? I'm not sure whether that answers your concern. Well, if you do remembrance, just stay with that with remembrance. It's like that's just the first thing you experience. Just stay with it in remembrance, and things will probably open, understandings will open, it'll get richer, more details will be filled in, sort of the overwhelmingness of it will not be so present. And you begin to be able to, contain it and have a sense of trust. And, okay, well, here's the next step, and here's the next step after that. So I would, especially in those situations, sit with it in remembrance. Yeah. And let me know how you do. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. So we are near the end of our time. I'll invite you to, if you have additional questions, to type them in to the bottom of that blog post, or you're welcome to email them to info@sufiuniversity.org, and we'd love to follow up with you. There's a way that you can actually speak with someone directly. And if you go to sufiuniversity.org, the easiest place to send you is /info, I-N-F-O. So sufiuniversity.org /info. There are 2 links on that page that I'd like to bring your attention to. There's one there where you can, if you scroll down just a little bit on the right, where you can schedule a time to speak with one of our admissions counselors, enrollment specialists, one of our advisors. And they will be happy to talk with you, to answer any of your questions, to get the answers for you. These people that would work with you there are very experienced in this way, and they're very beautiful, dedicated, loving, humble souls that are here to serve and dedicated to serve in the way that Wadude is describing. That is, if you have additional questions, that's probably the best thing to do, is to reach out to one of them. And also, I mentioned at the beginning of the program that we have a Masters of Divinity classes. We have Masters of Divinity classes. We have a new group starting on October the 29th. And the deadline for getting your application in there is rapidly approaching. So if you're interested in what Wadude gave you today, was a beautiful taste of what we offer at the university, of what becomes a way of life, of the purification of the heart, the beautification, the purification, the beautification. I love the way that you put that, Wadude. And so I gave you a beautiful taste of that today. And this is more than a practice. It becomes a way of life. It becomes a state of being. It becomes just something that we, innately are attracted to, because deep in the heart, each and every one of us yearns to live a life of love and truth and safety and connection, and the truth of all of these beautiful qualities that we spoke about that live in our heart, that were breathed into that beautiful baby that each of us once was. And it stays there. It's intact. It's still there. And it's yearning for each of us to return and to consciously recognize that state of unity and as best we can from human form to really live in that divine realm and to know those divine secrets that are buried in that secret treasure inside of our hearts. So I want to invite you, if you are at all called to by that yearning in your heart, if you're called for this at all, please reach out. Go to that page, sufiuniversity.org/info. There's a banner at the top where you can get more information about the Masters of Divinity programs, the academic programs that we offer. And then, as I said, just below that on the right is a place where you can request a time to chat with one of our specialists who can answer any questions that you have, who can help you with help you find a place to plug in where you can really begin to uncover the secrets to those questions in your heart, the answers to those questions in your heart. So again, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to sincerely invite you to join us on what is a most incredible journey that I know I'm a little biased because I've been here for so long, but I can't imagine what life would be like without these teachings, these practices, the guidance, the what we call walking, which is really walking through the veils so that we can exist, live, subsist in that exquisite state of being as we move through this life journey. So I invite you to join us for that and taste for yourself, experience for yourself. sufiuniversity.org/info. So thank you so much. And Wadude, thank you so much for this beautiful teaching this evening. Any last words from you, anything you want to say other than goodbye? Good night?
No, as our teacher said, there's no life like this life. And my prayer is for everybody who's listening to this has a life that's deeply beautiful and successful and blessed. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And thank you, Mastura, for setting this up. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Wadude. In the words of our current, one of our current co-presidents of the university, Selena Palestine, the world is waiting for your gifts. What are you waiting for? If you have not taken the dive, we invite you to take the dive. Uncover the gifts in your heart so that you bring them to the world. And with that, bid you a wonderful evening, a wonderful week. We hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.